Good evening and welcome to For the Record. International Youth Day will be celebrated this coming week on Saturday, 12th August. This year's International Youth Day is dedicated to celebrating young people's contributions to conflict prevention and transformation, as well as inclusion, social justice and sustainable peace. I am pleased to be joined this evening to discuss a range of youth issues in Fiji by two of the leading youth leaders in the country. Kajal Kumar, the Executive Director of the Aspire Network, and Elvis Kumar from the World Peace Initiative Foundation. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now you both do prominent work with young people in Fiji. Your organizations is quite well known. Please tell us about your respective organizations and the work that you do, Kajal.
Basically, Aspire started off in 2012, and we work in the area of youth, peace and security. So we design our program.
Why did you start?
I think.
And how did it start?
Well, prior to doing this, I used to work for Fiji Police Force and as a civilian staff. And one of the researches that I did was that there was a gap between. At that time, we were trying to see how can we find a solution to addressing youth-based crimes. And what we discovered was that that research what I was doing was that when you have this transition that takes place from primary school to high school, and when students leave high school, there's a gap. You know, we are following the kids, but there's a gap in the middle, and then there is this. By the time they reach their 30s, 40s up, they develop an ideology. So if we wanted to change the way people thought, or the young people thought, then we needed to target that middle group. And so I said, you know, when we sat down, I said, there's a big gap in this area, and no one was much doing anything in that work. So at that time,
there was no organizations working in that space.
No. So basically, it was too. They would invite young people, but there was never a dedicated organization, you know, to actually look at it. So in 2012, I set out to do this, and I was I come from a family that was affected by the events of 2000, and so for me. It goes back to those times, and so I was very passionate about it. So there was, you know, something within me that said that maybe this could be the solution. So in 2012, I set out to establish this organization.
Yeah. How did you get started? I mean,
initially, no one wanted to fund that project.
Right.
You know? So
because that's what happens for many youth that want to start something.
Yes.
They obviously need some funding and some. How did you manage to get through on that?
One of the thing was funding. The other thing was because I worked in the security sector, people had an ideology, you know, that she worked from security sector. So there was so much stigma on the security sector because of the events that has taken place in the previous in the history that they think of you in that way. But I think I left those organizations as a civilian, and I learned so much from it. But sometimes you can't make those change within the organization because there's so much layers of things there. But sometimes you can come out and do those changes. So I came out with a lot of knowledge, and I felt when I took those proposals out to people, they did not want to fund it. So luckily, I had my personal savings saved up from my previous employment, and I invested it. And then there were people who, like Ms. Suliana Sawadibao, because she had a previous background in peace and security thing, and so she was really keen to help. And there were people who understood what I was doing. They came forward to help out. But until it became a hit, no one wanted to actually really help out.
All right. So just very quickly, why did you call it Aspire Network?
Because it was something that we can look towards to change, like aspire to have that peace, and I thought that word brought in hope
to people. I'll bring Elvis in now. Elvis, the World Peace Initiative Foundation. When did you start in Fiji, and how did it start? What's the background to the organization?
Thank you. World Peace Initiative Foundation is actually a non-profit and non-government organization, and it is headquartered in Thailand with the offices in London and Peru. So basically, we have this project, Peace Revolution, in the World Peace Initiative Foundation, and through that project, we have reached out to all the regions all around the world, and we are conducting self-development workshops and trainings for young people, and conflict management, conflict resolution, stress management workshops all around the world. And this is also done with meditation and mindfulness. So basically, World Peace Initiative had covered all the 4 regions, and the Pacific region was missing from their work. So I got the chance to participate in one of their programs, and I became the first peace agent from the Pacific region. So that actually gave World Peace Initiative the opportunity
So how long you've been here now in Fiji?
We introduced Peace Revolution in Fiji in 2016 during the International Day of Peace. So
Right.
we had
so
the first event.
explain Peace Revolution.
Peace Revolution, it's a project. It's actually the main project of World Peace Initiative Foundation out of the other work that they do. So we organize these self-discovery camps for young people all throughout the regions, and we actually send out call for applications. Youths apply, and once they are selected, they come in for this 3 days, 6 days camp. And during the camp, we have these certified meditation trainers who come from Thailand or India, and we have them to train the young people on how to be mindful, and that we do it through meditation.
Why meditation?
Very good question, actually, because we relate everything to the mind, and right now we say that the mind is actually having a lot of stress. We have to try to have control of our mind to have the right mindset, and we classify meditation as an exercise for the mind. Through meditation, we can control
Because
our
one
mind.
talks about young people, the last thing you'd think come to mind is meditation. You know?
Yes.
So strengthening the mind.
Yes. So actually, those who have taken part in these programs, in these camps of Peace Revolution, they would have a really better idea of how it feels like, because when we organize this camp, we have these participants to disconnect themselves from the outside world, like no internet, no mobile phones, no music, no music gadgets or anything like that.
Not an easy thing to do.
Yes, and also we practice healthy eating. You know, in the Pacific, we do not actually forgo any of the 3 meals. So during this camp, we actually, especially in the evening meals, we just have something light,
Right.
so that we are able to wake up early the next day and start our day with another
So how does
meditation.
it, just to round up before we go to the break, how does it actually help youth and peace building?
Because through meditation, we are able to control our mind. We are able to think properly, have the correct mindset. Because that's when we meditate, we are not having our mind to think about a lot of things, to have stress on ourselves. Because actually, there's nothing such as stress. It's just us people who try to pile up things on our mind.
All right. Food for thought. You're watching For the Record. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back. You're watching For the Record. I'm with Kajal Kumarov, the Executive Director of Aspire Network, and Elvis Kumar from the World Peace Initiative Foundation. Before we went to the break, we were talking about meditation and having control of your mind as a way to strengthen young people in the things that they do. Kajal, you also work. Your organization also does work on peace, security, and development, and you work towards promoting young people's participation in what you call democratic innovation. How do you do that?
I'll give you one of the examples. One of the examples is the youth parliament that took place in 2014 that Aspire organized. This was straight after the elections. Now, one of the things that is a history in Fiji is once we have elections, it really divides the population, and then when we divide the population so badly, then we try to unite the population, and that's where the problem lies in our democracy. So what we at that time,
and sometimes the divide is
there. It's like it's always
forever.
there, forever. So when the straight after 2014 elections, what we had was that people were upset about, some were upset about the election results, some were happy about the election results, and people started to put things on social media. People started to vandalize. So we had a series of people, young people, going to the police stations, and that was something that was of concern to us. So one of the things that we came up
Going
with,
to the police station due to their political views on social media? Sorry, what were you saying?
No, what I mean is that we've seen that like there were vandalism, or there were whatever related things. So when they were taken in for questioning, I'm not saying they were arrested, they were taken in for questioning. So this was one of the things that we, coming from the experience of Fiji, working with the Fiji police force, they don't want to arrest young people. That's not what they want to do. But sometimes the programs are not there to address these things. So they are just like, okay, this is the only option that's available. So when we came into that program, I said, you know what, maybe we can come up with a better program. How about we channel all this passion and all these things into a system where they can take it out, where they can raise their concerns and things. So we approached Fiji Police Force to partnering with the Youth Parliament, and what we did was that we changed the format of the Youth Parliament. Instead of having a debate, we created an open forum where all these active youth leaders or youth groups that were there, who were actively blogging or actively doing things, try to get their ideas collectively and put it into a document and give it to the respective people who are responsible, so that they can actually start the process of healing and the country comes back together. So we thought that was a way to go about doing it. So in 2014, when we brought the groups together, it was one of the most difficult thing I've ever done in my entire life. I did not sleep for the 4 days of actually running it, and no one wanted to fund that project again. So until Australian government came on, so we had only 35,000 to do that project, and thankfully Fiji Police Force came in to support
it.
Yeah. So even though people did not know this, but they were there, they provided us with a lot of resources and facilities to take this project on.
And so the space was provided to
Yes.
get people to
Yes.
speak, eh?
And so that space, what actually, the result of that was, young people came to know about the democratic processes. And what was very interesting of the outcome of that was that once that was televised on the national televisions, a lot of them got job offers. How well they wrote and how well they came up with ideas.
How well they spoke.
Yes, and if had that particular forum been organized before the parliament, that would clearly have shown what really young people want. So there was this variety of ideas that came forward.
Right. I'll get Elvis in there, increasing the participation of young people in the process. How important is that?
I think it's very important, because normally we see that young people in Fiji, actually, they do not have the clear idea of what actually we are trying to achieve, what kind of peace is this. Because even myself, before I found out Peace Revolution, I was actually thinking, what is being done in Fiji about peace? I mean, for security maybe there, but what about peace? I mean, sending out your military, the soldiers, on a peacekeeping mission is not the actual peace that we are looking for. And through Peace Revolution Project, that's what actually we are trying to advocate, that peace actually isn't outside, it's from within us.
Exactly.
So that's what we are trying to do. We have to find peace within ourselves, then spread peace around us. And that will actually lead to the sustainable world peace.
I want to bring up that point about participating in the process, and when you had talked about meditation earlier, that when you had these programs, you got people to get off the internet, to get off social media, because and your comment about people getting young people involved in the process, because I see a lot of young people with strong political comments on social media, but trying to find people for this show, I couldn't get people to come on this show. So is there a disconnect between young people and their views being put on social media and them actually participating in the democratic process and structures and governance structures that we have?
Firstly, I think what young people do not realize, I see some of really, if you go on social media, you'll see some really, really good analysis that young people are doing, but some of the languages that they use sometimes goes off track. But the idea is really good. So one of the reasons what Aspire was working towards was, okay, you have a brilliant idea. How do we carve it, and how do we put it in a presentable way? So what happens is that when these people put their really good ideas on social media, what they don't realize that someone can actually steal their ideas and never give credit for it. How about when we design the program, how about we get them into a forum and we give credit for that particular ideas that they came up with? So one of those things was that. And the other thing that was really, what I see is that the amount of hate speech that goes on social media is just alarming.
It's not contributing to peace.
It's not contributing to peace.
Hold that thought.
Yeah.
We have to go to the break. Okay. You're watching For the Record. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching For the Record. Before we went to the break, we were on the discussion on hate speech and how on social media, and how it's not contributing to peace. How can we look to resolve that?
Okay, one of the things is that in order to resolve that, we need to go back into how it started. How did this political hate speech started in the first place? And so I will use one of the languages that has been used is the sexual contented languages. You have seen graphic pictures coming out, cartoons and things coming out of and I think one of the reasons is because when we have elections, we have political campaigning, and during this campaigning time, we have a law that governs political parties, right? But we don't have an ethics. We don't have an ethics of campaigning.
Is it an element of them expressing their frustration at the process, when their language starts to become such where they, let go and go off track, and because they don't feel like no one's listening to them? Would that be a correct point, Elvis?
Yes. And I think that's one of the big ones.
And also, the young people going and writing on the social media like Facebook and all that, it's actually, when you actually go through the comments and then you go through the profiles of these people, some of them, they are not having actually their true identity when they are commenting on writing about something. So I felt that either they are not confident about what they are saying, whether it's true or no, or they feel that they will be targeted for commenting about something. So I would just like to encourage the youth that if you feel that you are saying something that is correct, that is true, please do not be scared and just come out and speak. And that's all about youth participation.
Because social media is a powerful platform.
It is.
We need to encourage young people to use it in a positive way, and to further their participation in the democratic process. But how can they do it better? As a young activist, how would you advise young people in participating? We're coming towards the elections again.
I think let's not turn it into like what we're seeing now. What started off as little hate speech now turning into a youth culture. That unfortunately that has become a youth culture, blogging and writing hate speech and things. But what we need to understand is that a lot of young people are not reading critical analysis. They are all on social media, and unfortunately,
so not in depth.
And so now, if we were to hold a youth parliament, the ones that are really active will come in because they are the ones that probably will get. But what happens to the ones that are all on the social media? So I think what we really need to do is to bring that topic of hate speech right down to the secondary level or to the primary level, where we tell them what is actually the dangers of hate speech. Because hate speech does create violence. And one of the things that also is coming out of hate speech, and the other thing is that it's gone to a level now that people are hacking into people's accounts. And they're taking in very personal data and personal things that are posting in. And it started off as a political thing, but how it shapes the youth culture is this way. It started off with political active people making comments about each others and putting personal things on things. But now what we see is that young people are putting on social media things about affairs, you know, and they don't realize what defamation is.
So it goes down the drain,
Yeah.
so to speak. Now, there is this disconnect because there's still, as you've mentioned earlier, a lot of good ideas being put
Yes.
out by young people. However, when Parliament subcommittees call for submissions, when we have these consultations to submissions to the budget, there is this disconnect
Yes.
between these active young people on social media and those that actually turn up to the relevant democratic structures for the country
Yeah.
to participate. How can that be
Okay.
addressed? Or what do you see
Uh,
has caused this disconnect? That they do they not feel confident of moving from what they feel is a comfortable space
Yeah.
to a space where they feel they not belong, or there's some other issues around there that some other barriers that they don't feel they can come past?
You want to answer? Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things through Aspire's programs that what we have noticed in that is that, firstly, when the Parliament introduces a bill, right, the language of that bill is not understood by young people. Even a lot of educated people need lawyers to explain to them what that bill.
So it disconnects the young people straight
disconnects
away.
because they don't understand the legal language that is within that. So a program needs to be devised by the Parliament or by whichever organization, UNDP, who is responsible on explaining that legal process, or maybe a draft explaining it. So what we have is a legal bill that's put forward, and then political parties do this analysis, and sometimes they come up with their ways and they start putting their informations on boards. And so we don't have a breakdown of that bill into a civilian knowledge. And so that could be one of the biggest barriers, because young people can't afford lawyers. So if they were to come in and to present this, and then they start getting questions and answers from the side, because I have presented, so they start asking all these questions. They don't realize that the person on the other side is a young person, you know. And so if you
It can be intimidating.
it can be imitating, and that is one of the reasons why they're not able to put forward. The other one is that because we don't have very good governance programs for young people, and unfortunately people who
What do you mean by that?
okay, what I have, like, how do I say this, not referring to any particular organizations, what I have noticed is that whenever we have these forums about let's say, for example, panel discussion on something, the same people appear everywhere. The same people appear everywhere, and so what we have is
There's a lack of diversity.
Yeah, we are teaching governance to the same people who, you know, and we are not reaching out to the larger population. And what happens is this larger youth population is left out of the process, because all the funding that comes in, all the resources that comes in, unfortunately goes to people's coffees, drinks, cocktails, and the same people discuss everything. And, you know, and the same issues come up, and
Right.
the same, you know, but nothing is there.
Nothing.
And so
Can I just get Elvis before we go to the break? How can we reach out to the wider?
Actually, I agree
Diverse
with Kajal,
population.
because a lot of participation, the youth participation, you see the same people, like going to conferences, attending the events, and so the other youths, they actually lose interest in it.
Yes.
Because they feel that, okay, they were not invited for that opportunity. So they do not tend to make an effort to
So
reach
very
out.
quickly,
Yeah.
what should be done? What can be done?
I think what should be done is that we need to have decentralized programs of governance development, and we need to ensure, like for example with Aspire, we ask a question: have you attended any of our events? So if someone ticks yes, I don't get them inside to the program, because we try to give someone else an
Someone else an opportunity.
And so we try in doing that.
All right, we are discussing youth issues ahead of International Youth Day this Saturday, 12th August. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back to For the Record. Now, Kajal, I wanted to go back and discuss
Yes.
what we had been going on about the sometimes the disconnect between what's happening in the structures of governance
Yes.
and what young people are doing and
Yes.
saying on social media or in their own platforms.
Yes.
You mentioned earlier, and I think the first or second segment, about that the police force, they don't want to arrest young people.
Yes.
That's not the perception that many young people in Fiji
Yes.
have. They view the police force as oppressors, as people who come in their way,
Yes.
who are like bullies and enforcers. How do can you see the divide being addressed, or the perceptions change?
They actually, Fiji Police Force does not have really a dedicated person who specializes in developing programs for young people, because they have so many things. But when I was there, and for the programs that we have developed, one of the programs that Aspire developed was the National Policing Dialogue. And before, when we organized, there's a lot of people that came. We had 300 people that were interested, but we only had space for 30 people. And a lot of people, when they wrote their comments in why you wanted to attend, because they wrote all kinds of things about the Fiji Police Force. So when they came in, we took them to the various departments of Fiji Police Force, and for some of them this was...
So they wrote plenty of things about the police force,
yes.
Negative or...
most of them, the reason why I want to come in, because they, what you call this thing, when we're on the streets, they harass us, and when we launch complaints, where to go and things. So what we did with that particular National Youth Dialogue thing, we took them through the different sections of it, so the different planning sections of it, and how the perception changed, because young people did not know where to report if they had issues with the Fiji Police Force. And then young people, the biggest issue also was they did not know how to change what they didn't like about the Fiji Police Force. So what every year comes into place is their community outreach programs, but also there is a commissioner's intent plan that comes in. So if you want something to be changed, you can actually make submissions to that, and you can do it through a program. So what we took was, one of the most interesting part was, how we have when we have say for example illegal protest that takes place without a permit, and you see Ready Action, I'm not sure if they still call Ready Action Force, when the Ready Action Force comes in, and so they come in with this gear, and so that a lot of people that's really pulls them back, so one of the things we did in that program was, they came out and they did a drill for the young people that were present, and they explained that when we do this, we do it within the United Nations requirements. And
so within the international standards.
Standards.
You hosted this National Security for Young Leaders dialogue with the military, police and the Ministry of Defense.
Yes.
So what transpired out of that?
Oh, that was a very interesting one as well. What happened was that it gave the military an opportunity to really see what young people thought about the military. And one of the very interesting questions was asked at that time. The Land Force commander came in to speak in that forum, and they asked about, can you promise there will be no coup? Obviously the commander can't, because defense, but what he did was that he gave assurance, that was in 2014, whether elections comes in or not, we will not have any coups. And and what it also gave some ideas to the Fiji military forces, what the younger population wanted, and also the Fiji military forces also explained what their strategy was and how they were going to. So, but unfortunately, the spaces in these forums, because due to funding limitations that we have, only 30-40 people can actually access.
So more like this needs to happen, this
more
dialogue between young people and the security forces.
And one of the things that was, I got criticized for that, was because when we shortlisted it, we gave the opportunities to the people from the very remote areas, like those who were involved, had a conflict background, for example, during the 2000s. So those that we knew that had real issues that we wanted to bring to dialogue. And what was interesting was, because there is this perception of a group of young people who think that they are the leaders, and so they speak for everybody. But what they don't realize is that there are others in the community youths also have their voice that needs to be heard.
And they're representatives of views.
When we have conflict in a country, it's not the ones in the central division that goes, it's the ones from the marginalized, so the rural communities that gets brought into that conflict. So Aspire targets the unreached youths more.
Okay, great. Elvis, how does the work of the World Peace Initiative Foundation relate to some of this that we've been discussing?
Well, actually, in Peace Revolution project, like I mentioned, the project of World Peace Initiative Foundation, we invite the young people and we give them lectures and presentations based on understanding the mind and how to avoid conflicts and prevent quarrels and things like that. We develop their leadership qualities also. So we make them realize.
So peace building and
Yes.
conflict prevention.
We actually prepare them for future, like to act, to think well before they act, because like here Kajal was mentioning that about the young people, they think that the Fiji police force is actually doing like not in their favor, or like they are
Harassing
against
them.
the
Yes, harassing them.
against the young people, harassing them. So we try to train them that to change their perceptions of everything, because what they actually see at the first time, what they perceive cannot be true. So we try to go in through deeper. That's how we like develop themselves, and yeah, basically we do that instead of actually coming into the real situations and talking about what issues they are actually facing. We actually prepare them well before they actually face the issues.
Right. So being
Yes.
proactive about
Yes.
it.
I think,
Yeah. You just hold that one.
Sure.
We'll be back after the break.
Sure.
Welcome back. You're watching For the Record. Now, elections are coming up.
yes.
How can young people make a stronger impact and contribution?
I think there needs to be a lot of youth forums organized in various spaces, because young people do not have any, like if you're going to organize these forums, there needs to be trainers that come in to actually put those ideas into proper proper perspectives of what they want. And unfortunately, elections is just next year. I think we're looking at mid next year, probably late next year, when there's no talks about it. And so everyone is just believing what's on the social media right now. And here's what I feel that what could be a greater conflict. What there is that obviously the military has come forward and said, like, we will do no coup, right? But what we are seeing right now is the methodology, the campaigning strategy that's being used is race-based, religion-based, and a lot of hate speeches, a lot of things going on.
On social media.
On social media, there's a lot of things going on, and a lot of people are commenting. Now, what we see is that if, say, for example, the elections takes place, and the elections, so one party is definitely going to lose. And right now, when you look at the thing, everyone's saying that we're going to win, but definitely one is going to lose. So, if post-elections,
No, 1, 2, 3, or 4 will lose. Yeah.
yeah, and so post-elections, if these particular groups that are unhappy, these are two civilian parties, they're unhappy, like in the events of 2000, it was the two civilian groups, parties that were in conflict, and that conflict led to the events of 2000 coup. And then when the coup happened, the military then stepped in. And then after that, the martial law was imposed. So here we're talking about military coup, because people are probably referring to 2006, because young people, and so their knowledge probably goes to 2006 and things. But what they don't realize, that you can also have a civilian. And once we have that civilian unrest, they will step in. And that's when, if they are not able to reconcile that conflict, then we have to go back into the martial law, where the military runs it until the next election comes into place. And so what political parties, people are not looking at that also is a conflict that's coming up. And so that's why ethical campaigning is very, very important. And at the same time, we need to also make young people question the policies, not just we will do this for you, but how will they do it? break it down and tell them, okay, if we come into power, within next year, this is what we will do. And
so a bit more critical of the
bit more
policies
critical,
that's coming through. And obviously, a lot of parties will be going after what's called the youth vote.
Oh yeah, that's big one.
So what do you think youth should be mindful of in that regard, Elvis?
Youth, it's not actually a good idea to just go and write it on the social media. Like Kajal said, you have to come out, voice it out, that okay, we are looking at these things to be done, and you see if the political party is campaigning that okay, we will provide this. So you, as young people, you have to decide if that is actually going to benefit you and how they are going to provide, and not just in areas of for young people, but for the general community as a whole.
As a whole. Very
Yes.
quickly, we got 1 minute left.
Sure.
On the occasion of International Youth Day coming up this Saturday, your message to young people. 30 seconds each.
All right. Firstly, happy International Youth Day to everyone out there. And secondly, what I want to say is that this, from a peace and security, the military belongs to you, the Fiji police force belongs to you, the government and the state belongs to you. So coming 2018, you are going to decide who is going to run. And you're also deciding for the next 10 years of your future. So you think critically about the plans, the programs, but also the stability of our country. One of the biggest issues in our country is the stability. Some people will come up with good plans, but if they can't bring stability in the country.
In other words, choose wisely.
Yes.
Elvis?
I wish to wish everyone a happy International Day, and because the theme is building youth building peace, so I would like to advise all the youth to start from yourself, develop yourself well, and build peace inside you, find your own inner peace, and then move out into the community, show youth participation, get involved in youth groups, in forums, and voice out your issues, and also try to be engaged into national planning, and just
Thank you.
represent yourself well, because
All right.
you are the future for this country, for the world.
Thank you, Elvis Kumar, Kajal Kumar. Thank you for joining me on For the Record. That was For the Record for the evening. We hope you enjoyed the show and will join us again next Sunday at the same time. From me and the team on For the Record, good night.